While I was reading in the garden, a thing my great-aunt would never have understood my doing save on a Sunday, that being the day on which it was forbidden to indulge in any serious occupation, and on which she herself would lay aside her sewing. On a weekday, she would have said, "How can you go on amusing yourself with a book? It isn't Sunday, you know," putting into the word amusing an implication of childishness and waste of time. While I was reading in the garden, my Aunt Léonie would be gossiping with Françoise until it was time for Aurélie to arrive. She would tell her that she had just seen Madame Goupil go by without an umbrella in the silk dress she had had made for her at Châteaudun. If she has far to go before Vespers, she may get it properly soaked.
Yes,
Maybe, which also meant maybe not was the answer, for Françoise did not wish definitely to exclude the possibility of a happier alternative. "There now," said my aunt, beating her brow. "That reminds me, I never heard if she got to church this morning before the elevation. I must remember to ask Aurélie." "Françoise, just look at that black cloud behind the steeple, and how poor the sunlight is on the slates. You may be certain it will rain before the day is out. It couldn't possibly keep on like this. It's been too hot. And the sooner the better, for until the storm breaks, my Vichy water won't go down," she concluded, since in her mind, the desire to accelerate the digestion of her Vichy water was of infinitely greater importance than her fear of seeing Madame Goupil's new dress ruined. Maybe. And you know, when it rains in the square, there's not much shelter. Suddenly, my aunt turned pale. "What? 3 o'clock?" she exclaimed. "But Vespers will have begun already, and I've forgotten my pepsin. Now I know why that Vichy water has been lying on my stomach." And grabbing hold of a prayer book bound in purple velvet with gilt clasps, out of which, in her haste, she let fall a shower of the little pictures, each in a lace fringe of yellow paper, which she used to mark the places of the greater feasts of the church, my aunt, while she swallowed her drops, began at full speed to mutter the words of the sacred text, its meaning being slightly clouded in her brain by the uncertainty whether the pepsin, when taken so long after the Vichy, would still be able to overtake it and thus to send it down. 3 o'clock. It's incredible how time flies. A little tap at the window, as though something had struck it, followed by a plentiful falling sound, as light as if a shower of sand were being dropped from a window overhead. Then the fall, spreading, taking on an order, a rhythm, becoming liquid, loud, musical, innumerable, universal. It was the rain. "There, Françoise, what did I tell you? How it's coming down." "But I think I heard the bell at the garden gate. Go along and see who can be outside in this weather." Françoise went and returned. "It's Madame Amédée, my grandmother. She said she was going for a walk. It's raining hard all the same." "I'm not at all surprised," said my aunt, looking up to the sky. "I've always said that she was not in the least like other people. Well, I'm glad it's she and not myself who's outside in this rain." "Madame Amédée is always the exact opposite of the rest," said Françoise, not unkindly, refraining until she was alone with the other servants from stating her belief that my grandmother was a bit off her head. "The benediction is over. Aurélie will never come now," sighed my aunt. "It will be the weather that's frightened her away." "But it's not 5 o'clock yet, Madame Octave. It's only 4:30. Only 4:30. And here I am, obliged to draw back the small curtains just to get a miserable streak of daylight at 4:30, only a week before the rogation days. Ah, my poor Françoise, the good Lord must be sorely vexed with us. The world is going too far these days. As my poor Octave used to say, we have forgotten the good Lord too often, and he is taking vengeance on us. A bright flush animated my aunt's cheeks. It was Aurélie. As ill luck would have it, scarcely had she been admitted when Françoise reappeared, and with a smile that was meant to indicate her full participation in the pleasure which, she had no doubt, her tidings would give my aunt, articulating each syllable so as to show that, in spite of her having to translate them into indirect speech, she was repeating as a good servant should the very words that the new visitor had condescended to use, said, "His Reverence, the Curé, would be delighted, enchanted, if Madame Octave is not resting just now and could see him. His Reverence does not wish to disturb Madame Octave. His Reverence is downstairs. I told him to go into the parlor." Had the truth been known, the Curé's visit did not please my aunt nearly as much as Françoise supposed, and the air of jubilation with which she felt bound to illuminate her face whenever she had to announce his arrival did not altogether correspond to what was felt by her invalid. The Curé, an excellent man, with whom I am sorry now I did not converse more often, for even if he cared nothing for the arts, he knew a great many etymologies. The Curé, being in the habit of giving distinguished visitors information about the church, had even planned to compile a history of the parish of Combray, used to weary her with his endless explanations, which, incidentally, never varied in the least degree. But when his visit coincided exactly with Aurélie's, his presence became frankly distasteful to my aunt. She would have preferred to make the most of her friend, and not to have everyone at the same time. But she dared not send the Curé away, and had to content herself with making a sign to Aurélie not to leave when he did, so that she might have her to herself for a little after he had gone. "What is this I have been hearing, Father, that an artist has set up his easel in your church and is copying one of the windows? Old as I am, I can safely say that I have never even heard of such a thing in all my life. What is this world coming to next, I wonder? And the ugliest thing in the whole church, too. I will not go so far as to say that it is quite the ugliest, for although there are certain things in Saint-Hilaire that are well worth a visit, there are others that are very old now in my poor basilica, the only one in all the diocese that has never even been restored. God knows our porch is dirty and out of date. Still, it is of a majestic character. The same can be said of the Esther tapestries, though personally, I would not give 2 sous for them, but experts put them next after the ones at Sens. I can quite see, too, that apart from certain details that are a trifle realistic, they show others that testify to a genuine power of observation. But don't talk to me about the windows. Is it common sense to leave up windows that shut out all the daylight and even confuse the eyes by throwing patches of color that I wouldn't even know how to describe on a floor in which there are not 2 slabs on the same level? And yet they refuse to renew the floor for me on the pretext that those slabs are the tombstones of the abbots of Combray and the lords of Guermantes, the old counts of Brabant, direct ancestors of the present Duc de Guermantes, and of his duchess also, since she was a Mademoiselle de Guermantes who married her cousin. My grandmother, by dint of refusing to take any interest in persons, had added and confusing all their names and titles. And whenever anyone mentioned a Duchesse de Guermantes, she used to make out that she must be related to Madame de Villeparcy. The whole family would then burst out laughing, and she would attempt to justify herself by harking back to some to some invitation to a christening or a funeral. I feel sure there was a Guermantes in there somewhere. And for once, I would side with the others and against her, refusing to admit that there could be any connection between her boarding school friend and the descendant of Geneviève de Brabant. Look at Roussanville, the curé went on. It is nothing more nowadays than a parish of farmers, though in olden times that locality must have had a considerable importance from its trade in felt hats and clocks. I am not certain of the etymology of Roussanville. I would dearly like to think that the name was originally Rouville, from Radulfi Villa, analogous to Châteauroux, Castrum Radulfi. But we will talk about that some other time. Very well. The church there has superb windows, almost all quite modern, including that most imposing entry of Louis Philippe into Combray, which would be more in keeping, surely, at Combray itself, and which is every bit as good, I understand, as the famous windows at Chartres. Only yesterday, I met Dr. Perspier's brother, who knows all about these things, and he told me that he looked on it as a most beautiful piece of work. But as I said to this artist, who, by the way, seems to be a most civil fellow, and is, as it appears, a true virtuoso with his brush, what on earth do you find so extraordinary in this window, which is, if anything, a little darker than the rest?